Hello and welcome back to the Villa Filler podcast. I'm here as always with my good friend Dan Wiseman. Dan, it's been a minute. A lot has happened. You are a year older now. It's not been a year since we've done the podcast, but it's been your birthday this week. So happy birthday to you, mate. Um, yeah, a lot has happened. I think it's fair to say, hasn't it, mate, since you and I last spoke. And I think we'll sort of speak for a large majority of the fan base when we sort of come to the discussion of Champions League ticket prices and whatnot. But before we get into all that, mate, how are you? How was the birthday weekend?
It was very nice, thank you, mate. Very nice indeed. It was made better by some great sporting results. Obviously, the Villa got a result for my birthday. Charles Leclerc won the Italian Grand Prix. The stars were aligning. We went into Monday, we had bar in the weather, we had an absolutely glorious day, a great weekend. So it was very enjoyable one, thank you, mate. You were off doing some scouting ahead of one of our Champions League opponents, were you not?
Absolutely, mate. I was involved in my first deadline day deal, not as an agent or anything like that, but yeah, we sort of got the call up for Austin's move to Celtic, and we're like, we're gonna have a car here at this time, be there. Yeah, it was amazing. First Old Firm on the weekend, absolutely incredible. Celtic absolutely dismantled Rangers. I was sort of speaking to Scott over the weekend as well, and I don't think he was too happy, but I think he expected the demolition job that Celtic did. But yeah, it's been a crazy weekend, mate. Celtic look decent. It's a shame we're not going there. When the draw happened.
Yep.
Because I don't think we've spoke since the draw has come out. Really, really decent draw. Old format, obviously, you'd go home and away this time. You get 4 home games, 4 away games against different opponents. Celtic coming to Villa Park will be absolutely amazing. Be good to see Austin at Villa Park again, although last time he did lock up Ollie Watkins, so that's a bit of a sort of sore subject between the two of us. But on the sort of subject of Champions League, mate, we should probably stick with that and with the sort of ticket news that came out, because it's far from ideal, really, is it? Obviously, the club have announced the prices, and there seems to be no sort of package, which there was begrudgingly, I think, for the Conference League last season, at least for the group games, where you were able to sort of bundle your tickets and get a quote-unquote discount. Yeah, none of that this time, mate. None of that this time. And obviously, I'm interested to hear your perspective on it, mate, as well, as somebody who obviously isn't living in the area anymore. So, sort of going to Villa is more of an occasion, I think it's fair to say. And obviously, you will have been looking at all 4 of these home games: Juventus, Bayern Munich, Celtic, Bologna, and at the time of the draw, I imagine you'd have been extremely excited to attend all 4 of these. But unfortunately, and it's not just for you, mate, it's for people who still, I don't know why I said made it out as if you were the only one that doesn't live local. But people from far and wide will be looking at this and will unfortunately be priced out of watching Villa in Europe, which doesn't sit right with me at all. Especially when you only have to go back 7 years to the Trinity Road Upper being closed, because couldn't get people in, bums and seats, and all of that. We've been on such a journey over the past 7 years, and it's almost a kick in the face, especially to those who were there time as well, which obviously you and I both were, mate. These prices are just nothing short of a disgrace, are they? £97 in the 1888 zone suite, I guess. £94 in zone 1 for an adult. The lowest price you can get zone 4 is £85. If you've got a season ticket, that'll be £70 in zone 4 and £79 in zone 1. It's just despicable. It's evil. I'm struggling to find the words to describe how angry this makes me feel, especially when you have to stomach the £800, the like £300 price increase of a season ticket as well. the club is alienating a lot of people. And, as somebody myself who, spends a lot of time and money watching Villa, not only home, but away as well, this just does not sit right with me at all. And it almost makes it even harder to justify going and showing up in the future. I appreciate I've rambled for a long time there, mate, so I'm just going to hand the baton over to you. Absolutely despicable.
It's really disheartening, isn't it? It has put such a sour note on what is like it's a glorious moment for our football club. It's been pitched as this return to a competition, a home, a promised land to which we rightfully belong to. And that's very much been the club's position, that we are truly back where we belong. But this isn't that for the fans. This isn't that. This is a price on our loyalty almost. It's a test, it feels, by the club to really just stretch just how far we're willing to delve into our bank accounts to experience this moment, which we may not get again. It feels like fans are being asked to consider which they like more, like their bank balances or the club, especially as all 4 tickets are priced the same. If it was a top of £97, £94, whatever it is for non-season ticket holders to get into the ground for Bayern Munich, there's a part of me that could understand it, that would never think it was okay, that would never think it was reasonable, but that could understand it if that then dropped to £50, £60, which is even still extortionate to get in for Bologna. The fact that you have to pay that no matter the opponent just shows that there is no kind of rhyme or reason to this from the club. I think it paints Chris Heck's image of the club and B, his work over the summer in a completely new light. I kind of came on the podcast and said that I was hesitant to praise things like the newly developed fan store or the fan zone that they're building at Villa Park, because they're essentially money-making exercises designed to keep the fans at the stadium spending their money. It's ultimately there to benefit the club, not to benefit us. And I think it really starts to paint those exercises in a new light. And Chris Heck has just had a very harsh realization into exactly what it means to be the president, as he calls himself, of an English football club, because he was walking on, everything he touched turns to gold. The fans loved him. I went back through his Twitter account on the train back from work and went through the tweets from about a month ago, and anything he posted was just lapped up by Villa fans, and understandably so. We are in a glorious period for this football club. The transition, this ownership generally has meant nothing but good things for the club generally. And Chris Heck's he's come in at a time where probably the best period for this club in our lifetime. And so it's understanding that he has walked into kind of a lot of praise from Villa fans. And that has just changed in an instant. The club have been met with the harsh reality of releasing news like this during an international break. News like this travels far and wide when there's no football going on. If they'd have done this on a Friday morning with Villa playing 3 o'clock on Saturday against Everton, this would have been news for 24 hours and no more until the lineups came out, and then it would have been all about the game. The club have done this at a time where this will be a major discussion point for 2 weeks until the Villa kick a ball again. And I think when you look at how it compares to other clubs, you can get in to Anfield on a Champions League night for £30. They won the competition 5 years ago. Manchester City, who won the competition 2 years ago, you can get into the Etihad for £37.50. At both Liverpool and Man City, the most expensive matchday ticket you can get is £61 and £62.50 respectively. It is absolutely extortionate pricing for a club that you would only assume are taking a gamble on us not getting very far in the competition. I push back totally on the narrative that this is premium football, so we get premium pricing. That's an absolute nonsense. Look how they do it in Germany. The club do not need this money. Don't waft the PSR thing under my nose. It's nonsense. When we're selling academy graduates off like they're going out of fashion, we're moving Cameron Archer and JPP around like they're pawns in the English football system. It's absolutely nuts, mate. And it is really disappointing. And I'm like genuinely, not even annoyed, just upset about it, mate, because it's really put, when we're there on a Champions League night, maybe we'll forget about it. But, as each and one of us, no doubt the games will sell out. Of course they will. when each of us walks through the turnstiles and scans our ticket, there will be a moment in our minds that casts back to just how much that cost us. And, you kind of mentioned me and my trip to Villa Park, mate. I'm one of the lucky ones, really. It's those dads that have been sharing this moment of Champions League football with their kids who've never seen Villa in any form of European competition until 2 seasons ago, that now have to pay 100, 120, 150 pounds to get, him and his 2 kids, or it's him and his wife, into Villa Park for those games. I just have to get myself in. And that's hard enough as it is. So, yeah, it's tough to take, mate. As I say, I could ramble on about this all day. I'm sure it's not making for great podcast viewing. But yeah, that's my 2 cents, I suppose.
Well, people, want to feel like that their sort of views are being represented, mate. So, we could sit and talk about this all day, and I'm sure people would enjoy. So you forwarded me Jacob Tanswell's piece in The Athletic earlier. Aston Villa refused request from fan advisory board to cap Champions League tickets, which you imagine that news would have been embargoed until the time as well. But that just goes to show you, doesn't it, that the club really do not care, and they will do whatever it takes. And as you say, all this PSR bootlicking on the timeline, I can't stand it. I absolutely cannot stand it. It makes me sick to the stomach when you read, as you say, Cam, JPB, even Amari Kellyman. How quickly have we forgotten about him? The way things, these things are always framed at the time, and it's for the best of the club and this and that. It's nonsense. They had an opportunity. If they wanted to go at even £50, which is still a lot, but when you compare that to some of the prices for general admission in the Premier League, on the cheaper side, I remember seeing Arsenal and City tickets for £70 or something stupid like that. If they price this at £50, you do a package £200 for all of them. My word, it's still a lot of money. Villa would still make enough, you would imagine, but I feel like a lot more people would be more comfortable parting way with that much money, and obviously cheaper for kids and concessions as well. It's been an absolute own goal from the club. It's actually quite glorious how bad this has been. Do I, however, think that this will force the club to change their prices or, release a statement or anything? Absolutely not. And by the time this is published, I may well have egg on my face, and the club may well have changed their stance on this, but I do not envisage at all Chris Heck bowing down, admitting defeat, admitting that he was wrong. And it's actually, I think what's even more of a piss take with it all as well, mate, as you say, you could half understand why you would try and get the most money out of Bayern Munich and out of Juventus. And I'm not saying that that's right at all, but you can understand why that would be more of a premium. But Bologna and Celtic are potentially going to be dead rubber games. And that's not to say that we're going to have qualified. We could be crashing out of this competition, and there could be absolutely nothing on these games. The fact that they're priced the same is an absolute disgrace. I'm just really angry, mate, to be honest. And what makes it even worse as well is we're going to get to these nights. Villa Park's not even, it's going to be nowhere near full, because who in their right mind, with the context of Bologna and Celtic, would pay that much money and part with that much money to watch those things, with all due respect to both opposition as well, by the way. Who would pay that much when the opportunity to watch Bayern and Juve for the same price is there? Then all of a sudden, the fan bases are laughing stocks, people externally who may not have, got all the context. You see it all the time with people bantering attendances and stuff like that, and it's cheap shots, really, especially in the current climate with, the sort of cost of living crisis and everything like that. I do find it like the worst form of point scoring now. But, that is what it is, really. But it's going to be embarrassing. Champions League nights broadcasted literally around the world, and there's going to be empty seats at Villa Park. I honestly, do you think they'll do anything about this, mate? Honestly, I can't see the club doing anything about this.
Well, I think the most important thing to note, you mentioned that Jacob Tanswell article, is that in that meeting with the fans advisory board, Chris Heck declined the opportunity to attend. And this was met by the FOB saying they were massively disappointed by this. that since this consultation group started 8 years ago, the Villa chief executive officer or the equivalent position has always found the time to attend such meetings, and Chris Heck was nowhere to be seen, which I think says a lot about his stance on the matter. It's hard to imagine. It's hard to imagine because the club will have made financial forecasts far beyond these games that are based on the revenue that they'll get in from these games. You know, this is not like an ad hoc decision that's been made this morning. They've taken an attempt to check and gone, actually, maybe we can tweak that. This would have been in the works since the moment it was announced. Like, you know, they were all at that game last season watching the Club Awards night, and the goal went in that scored Villa Champions League football. It would have been sewn up there and then, like exactly what the plans would have been for when Villa made this competition. And it's, you know, irrespective of, you know, it could have been young boys, Bologna, Monaco, and Celtic at home, and it still would have been the same pricing. Like it is what it is. And so no, it's hard to imagine that they'll reverse it. To be honest with you, it is a shame. Like, and I think your point around affordable ticketing is a very good point, mate. Like, you know, we've both been the beneficiary, I imagine, of those uni days tickets that Man City used to put on sale on Champions League nights, which were, you know, mocked around the board when other fan groups, you know, got a hold of the fact that they were on uni days. But you're going to make fun of affordable ticketing for people that otherwise wouldn't be able to afford to go to Champions League football games. Like, I'm not. And I know that comes from, you know, maybe they don't have the confidence to sell their ground out and stuff like that. But that's kind of by the by. Clubs far better than us, far more dependent on income than us, that have been battling FFP for a lot longer than we have found a way to make tickets affordable. It's like €20 to get into like German grounds on Champions League nights, and Bayern Munich have just paid €100 million for Harry Kane. It's doable. But I think it's just clear that the club don't want to do it.
Yeah. Celtic are charging £45 as well for all their games, and they've got some interesting home ties as well. A few of the guys were playing away from home, actually, I believe. So, yeah, as you say, it's absolutely doable. I wanted to highlight this tweet from Kieran Maguire. If those of you who don't know, you know, football finance expert, written quite a few books on the topic. Helped me out a lot during uni, those books, in my business assignments. He's tweeted, the price of a European Cup final ticket in 1982 between Bayern Munich and Aston Villa cost 20 guilders, which is apparently the equivalent of £4.28. Inflation, that adjusted to inflation, takes it to £14.78. So for a final, oh my days, that markup is ridiculous. For a group stage game. And do you know what it is as well? It's the fact that we get the news fed to us yesterday, you know, through the papers about the Douglas Luiz sale and how necessary it was, and how it could have been Emmy, or it could have been JJ, or it could have even been Ollie. It's almost as if it was released at, you know, the sort of perfect time to hopefully you know, gain some sympathy votes from the supporters. But people ain't seeing through that. People aren't thick, and it's just crazy, isn't it, mate? Honestly, and you've obviously you've had the piece today with Damien Vindenbreyer, however you even fucking say his name, talking about finances and how much he's had to move in assembling the squad as well. It's all fluff, really. So it's like, do you know, like it's stuff like that. Genuinely, mate. You know, like, we started this podcast a long time ago, talking about Villa in the Championship. A large portion of what we do was, you know, which sort of got us to the point where we are, where it was sort of doing analysis on players and transfer rumours and that kind of thing. And football's always been a business, like it has, but now it seems like all we do is come on this podcast, and like, yeah, half the time we're talking about amazing football and how amazing Unai Emery's Aston Villa are, but then like, the other half of it is we're just talking about fucking business and finance. And it was interesting a couple of years ago when it was like, you know, like it wasn't as widely reported on, but now it feels like, to be a football fan, you have to have a fucking business degree as well. Which fortunately I have, but that doesn't make it any more enjoyable, does it? Like, do you know what I mean?
No, mate, absolutely. There's a really interesting book which I've just finished actually about Union Berlin, and charting their rise through the kind of German football pyramid to reach the Bundesliga. And the title of the book is like Scheisse, We're Going Up. And it's about a tifo that the fans unveiled when they finally got promoted to the Bundesliga for the first time in their history. And it was semi in jest, but semi in fear, because they had created something which they wanted to keep hold of so badly that they knew if they were promoted to the Bundesliga, they would inevitably lose control of, that the club would take on legs of its own and become this commercial entity which the fans could never really own. And I kind of thought of that actually when this happened, and we've had a few moments of it when we've been promoted to the Premier League. And I think the sale of academy products is one, the sale of Douglas Luiz to Juventus is another, these ticket prices are another. The ever inflating costs of season ticket prices is another. Like, is this the club that we recognise that you and I started talking about back in the Championship? No. In some cases, that's for better. But actually, was there more of a... Did we feel more involved? Did we feel more of a part of things? Did we feel that actually this was an entity? This is an entity now being run by professional decision makers. Whereas back then, it felt like it was the fans that were keeping the club almost going, and the Trinity was closed and attendances weren't great, but we're all there in those days and we know how it felt, and we had a constant relationship with the players. There was a fan in the dugouts and there was Villa fans making the Villa kits, and we've never felt more connected to the club than at that point. And whilst the Villa have got better, the fans have actually been positioned further and further away, and now we're just seeing this financial enterprise which we have no visibility of PSR or FFP or how it works or what Villa need to do. It's happening behind this screen that even when we do get a glimpse behind it, none of us are, as you say, are qualified to understand it. None of us should have to understand it. We have day jobs. We have our own responsibilities to take care of. We're not paid to understand that situation. And it is kind of crazy that this is a level which we've been yearning for so long, and the fans will continue to yearn for so long. But the two can't coexist. And like, Man City, right? Man City, I've got friends who are Man City fans, and like before the season when I know this is like kind of by the by now, before the season when it was looking at, they'd be playing Oscar Bob and James McAtee and O'Reilly and Rico Lewis, they were quite excited to have a season where, maybe we don't win the league, but we see our kids, we see this academy, and like, it's quite disenchanting to like see like fan bases kind of feel like that. But I guess that's where we're kind of headed, and I do think that's a bit of a sad prospect, really.
Yeah, it is, mate. It is. But I imagine one day, probably in a long time, there'll be like a pendulum moment. There'll be a point of you either it's the point of no return, really, isn't it? You either go full in, and I think I've been a firm believer for a very long time that, like, with transfers and wages and stuff like that, there is absolutely it's a bubble and it will burst, and then things will need to sort of, you'll have to recoup and be a lot more considerate with how you're sort of building and sort of paying fees and wages and all that. When that is, I don't know. Each year the fees genuinely just keep going up and make me look a little bit silly, but it has to happen one day. And yeah, I mean, maybe all this talk of PSR and all this, as boring as it is, maybe the regulation just needs to be better. Maybe the current regulation isn't enough, and there needs to be either more or less, or just a clearly defined boundaries in which you can operate in. I believe in that piece that Damien V, we're calling him Damien V, did. He referred to the fact that I think either next season or the season after, UEFA and Premier League PSR will be a lot more aligned, and that you could spend up to 85% of revenue or whatever that may be, which obviously would make things a lot easier. But again, like, sound a podcast talking about fucking business again. Like, I hate it. Let's talk about the footy, mate. Let's talk about the footy, because it was a great result away from home. And after, I know it was a few weeks ago, but after watching Monday Night Football, Leicester versus Spurs, I was actually very, very worried about this game. King Power is one of them places that I think it's just how the stadium's built. the fans feel like they're right on top of you, and they can really create an intimidating atmosphere. And with Steve Cooper as the manager, again, somebody who is thrives upon being the underdog, and in that atmosphere, that's when you see the best of his ability really in getting that out of players. I thought that this would be very difficult, and it wasn't without its challenges, of course, but I have a feeling that we're going to win a lot of games away from home this season, and I'm knocking on wood when I say that, mate, but we're 2 for 2 now, and when you look at the goals and how beautifully the Onana goal is crafted, but the John Duran goal as well, and I sort of look back at what we were talking about with West Ham, mate. In these away games, that physicality from both of those players is so important, and it's something that we've lacked in such a long time, and it's just refreshing to have the options that we do. And I think, for that reason and that reason alone, we are going to pick up a lot of points away from home this season.
Yeah, it was a very good performance overall. It was a bit, as you say, a bit helter-skelter towards the end. We made it a little bit harder than we maybe needed to do. But yeah, I think there was certainly a lot to like. Obviously, the John Duran narrative. Doesn't it feel, mate, I saw the goal going, and doesn't it feel like a deja vu? Like exactly this point 12 months ago, Ollie Watkins had a slow start to the season. John Duran then scored against Everton. He scored against Hibernia, and then he scored away at Legia Warsaw. And we were like, "Oh, like is Ollie like is it time to start John Duran?" And we're here again. A very slow start to the season by Ollie Watkins. John Duran, like his goal catalogue just gets better and better and better, and all of a sudden, you look at our next kind of few games, it's a run of games that you imagine that particularly, he's pulled out of the England squad, that Ollie Watkins can get back on the treatment table, get himself fully fit and score some goals in, and you imagine that will kind of put that narrative to bed. But it's kind of in these moments where, I don't want to, I'm not going to excuse any of this summer behaviour, but like, you'd kind of be a bit seized off a few with John Duran. I think it's one goal in his last 11 games for Ollie Watkins, which was that goal in the 90th minute of the semi-final of the Euros. And you've got John Duran, who's got like 2-2, that's got, one of the best goals to game ratios, well, the second best goals to game ratio of like goals to minute ratio, I should say, of any kind of striker in the Premier League, bar Erling Haaland. You would, a bit cheesed off that it's like you're constantly having to play from 70 minutes, and whilst you're very good at it, you'd probably be wondering what you could do over at 90. And look, there's definitely a better way to kind of handle his unhappiness. But it's kind of at this point where you're kind of like looking at Everton. Ollie Watkins is evidently not fully fit. I know he's got a week to kind of sort that out, but like, surely if you're John Duran, you're kind of looking at Emery and being like, come on, like you've got to give me this one. It's interesting. Like he's literally single-handedly winning his games on the road very comfortably. Taking 6 points from what otherwise would have been 2 without his goals. You've got to hand it to him. Like he has really knuckled down. He's played his part. He's played a bigger part than I think any of us thought you would expect this early on in the season. I think as Villa fans, we've got to hold our hands up and say that no, he's doing very well. And it probably has got to be a little bit frustrating that come 2:00 next Saturday, 4:30 when we play Everton, it'll probably be Ollie Watkins' name on the squad, on the team sheet, and should it be? It's a conversation to have.
It's an interesting debate, mate, and I'd love to know what people think in the comment section down below. When you look at the run of games, Everton at home, Young Boys away, Villa, Wolves at home, Wickham away, Ipswich away, then Bayern Munich at home, that's a run of 5 games really, where Ollie needs to get up to speed before Bayern, which is like, you would bill as the big one, not to downplay Young Boys away, but I'm looking at Ipswich, I'm looking at Wickham, I'm looking at Everton, I'm even looking at Young Boys, and I'm thinking John Duran's going to get quite a lot of minutes over the next month, potentially, which, is a good thing for him. And yeah, it'd be a good thing for Ollie, obviously, to get back fit as well. I found it funny, mate, seeing Ollie pull out of the England squad, because we're finally moving like a big team, aren't we? all them years of Sir Alex telling players to go down with an injury or, withdraw, play 20 minutes, go down, all that, you hear. We're moving like the big boys now on the field. So yeah, I did find that quite funny. But Duran, yeah, I mean, it's a great goal as well, isn't it, mate? It's a really good header. So there is a bit of a dying art, really. I loved Amadou's goal as well. Right place, right time. Really well worked set piece routine. I don't think JJ gets nearly enough credit for his contribution to that. Obviously puts that initial ball into Ollie, gets it back over to Amadou. Amadou makes it 1-0. Again, you have to give Austin McPhee his flowers. It's one of them things where, like, until you see the sort of fruits of the labour, it's hard to appreciate what he's sort of been cooking. I know a lot of people have been very frustrated, but again, to go back to the presence now that we have attacking the 18-yard box, and I know this wasn't a header, but Amadou Onana has really transformed already how we approach set plays. And again, he could even reach double figures this season in goals in all competitions if he carries on like he's going right now, mate, which would be quite the sight. Did you see his T-shirt as well?
I did, mate. I did.
Quality, man. We love somebody who's dialed into the meme culture. That was absolutely brilliant. And while we're on the subject of international football, I guess Emi Martinez has been nominated for the Yashin Trophy. Yet again, he's got quite some esteemed company on the list. I had it up somewhere. Fabrizio Romano tweeted it. I'm just going to try and find it right now. I'm just babbling to buy some time. So he's up there with, drum roll please. Oh my God, how many tweets has this guy made in the last hour? Fuck me. Okay, so we've got Diego Costa, Gianluigi Donnarumma, Gregor Kobel, Andre Luin, Mike Magnon, Emi Martinez, Georgi Mamadashvili, Unai Simon, Jan Sommer, and Ronwell Williams. I'm looking at this list, right? I don't think you could argue anybody over Emi. And I'm sure fans of all of these teams and nations will. I honestly don't think you could argue over Emi, over any of those guys. Mike Magnon, maybe. What did he win? Didn't win anything.
It's an interesting, like, I'm looking through those names and I'm trying to think, like, who kind of, who won what, like, who's kind of going to be favoured, and it is wide open. It is wide open. Like, there's no kind of front runner there. I think Emi, obviously his last award was like helped massively by his World Cup campaign and stuff like that. But we're kind of without that, really. And so it'd be interesting to see kind of what names jump out and who takes that. It may be, who knows? It may be a FIFA award given out on merit. Who'd have thought it?
Not me.
Yes. Who knew? So it'd be interesting to see kind of who comes out of that. But best of luck to you, mate. Obviously, happy birthday. I share a birthday with Emi Martinez, which is just great.
Of course.
Just great.
Yeah. Two great goalkeepers representing Aston Villa, born on the same day.
There was number two. Sat on a podcast. That's the only problem. Was number one in the sticks.
Well, he's the world's number 23 now, isn't he? So I guess
yes,
you've moved up in the world.
I'm up the pecking order.
It's on a technicality, but we'll take it, mate. We'll absolutely
take it, mate. I'll take it.
Guys, let us know your thoughts in the comment section down below. Emi's obviously going to win that, knock on wood. And yeah, hopefully that's another trophy that we can add to his collection, and hopefully Villa can get one too. That would be nice one day. And maybe, just maybe, it would make the fucking £270 worth of European tickets just for the group stage worth it. But who will know? Who will know? If you enjoyed this video, guys, make sure you hit a like, comment your thoughts below, and subscribe for more. Up the Villa.